the mask of royal stoicism has finally shattered. For decades, the world has watched the British monarchy through a lens of quiet endurance, guided by the late Queen's golden rule: never complain and never explain. But as we stand here in late April 2026, that era of silence has come to a grinding, explosive halt. The palace walls are no longer vibrating with mere disappointment. They are shaking with a fury we have never seen in the modern age. The source of this unprecedented seismic shift? A monarch who has finally reached his absolute breaking point. King Charles III is, in the unfiltered words of veteran American correspondent Billy Bush, pissed off. This is not the gentle sadness of a father longing for a wayward son. This is the cold, calculated anger of a sovereign who realizes that his silence has been mistaken for weakness. For years, we have watched the Duke and Duchess of Sussex treat the 1,000-year-old institution of the monarchy like a personal vending machine extracting status, titles, and global attention, while giving nothing back but vitriol and commercial exploitation. But today, the game has changed. The truth bombs are no longer coming from California. They are being dropped by the very people who have spent a lifetime protecting the crown. Billy Bush, a man who sits at the high-stakes crossroads of Hollywood glamour and global power dynamics, has revealed through his Hot Mics platform what many in the United Kingdom have suspected for months. The late Queen Elizabeth II was famous for her Teddy Graham exterior, sweet, soft, and unshakable. Yet, even she had drawn a line in the sand that was as thick as the stones of Windsor Castle. There is no such thing as being half in and half out. You are either a servant of the people or you are a private citizen. You cannot be both. While the king was initially seen as the softer touch compared to Prince William, who has reportedly wanted the Sussexes gone and dealt with for years, the recent disaster tour to Australia has acted as the ultimate catalyst. This wasn't just a trip. It was a reputational car crash that has done more damage than the couple could ever imagine. While Harry and Meghan were smiling for the cameras in Australia, pretending to carry out charitable work, the reality behind the scenes was a murky combination of taxpayer-funded security and blatant commercial merching. The timing of this betrayal couldn't be more calculated or more damaging. On Monday, King Charles begins one of the most critical diplomatic missions of his reign, a high-stakes state visit to the United States of America. He is scheduled to be hosted at the White House by President Donald Trump and deliver a major address to a joint session of Congress. This is a moment of supreme soft power, a chance to solidify the special relationship in a volatile world. And yet, what do we see? We see Prince Harry surfacing in Ukraine just days prior, carrying out his own brand of freelance diplomacy that threatens to muddy the waters of official British government policy. It is a reckless game of shadowboxing. Every time the king attempts to build, the Sussexes attempt to distract. But the strategy of doing nothing to avoid making them look like victims has failed. The king's laissez-faire approach, the fear that taking away titles would lead to accusations of victimizing grandchildren, has only emboldened the pair. They have taken the king's grace and used it as a weapon against him. But according to the latest intelligence from those close to the sovereign, the upset and sad version of Charles is gone. He is now totally annoyed, and in the world of high-stakes monarchy, annoyance is the precursor to action. The king is realizing what Prince William has known all along. You cannot negotiate with people who view your tradition as their product. This isn't just about family drama anymore. It's about the integrity of the British state. As the king prepares to stand in the halls of American power, he does so with the heavy knowledge that his own flesh and blood is actively working to undermine the prestige of the crown. The Sussexes have pleaded for privacy while simultaneously thrusting themselves into the center of a self-created media scrum. They want the charmed life, but they refuse the duty that pays for it. In the next sections of this investigation, we are going to look at the granular details of how this betrayal was executed. We will Boktoch dissect the financial kickbacks, the trademarking of personal brands on foreign soil, and the shocking lack of cultural sensitivity that has left the Australian public feeling used. We are also going to look at the chilling observations made by the late Queen herself, who, according to palace insiders, saw through the narcissistic tendencies long before the first Netflix camera began to roll. The era of the laissez-faire king is over. The pissed-off monarch has arrived, and if the history of the House of Windsor has taught us anything, it's that when the sovereign is backed into a corner, the consequences are swift, silent, and permanent. The disaster tour was the final straw. Now, it's time for the reckoning. Keep watching, because the details of what Meghan did in Australia and the merching of a very specific, controversial shirt will change everything you thought you knew about this non-royal royal tour. This is the beginning of the end for the Sussex connection to the crown. The disaster tour of Australia was the moment the mask finally slipped, revealing a calculated business operation disguised as a royal engagement. If you thought the tension was merely about family disagreements, the details emerging from the Southern Hemisphere prove that this was something far more transactional and far more dangerous to the crown's integrity. To understand why King Charles has reached a state of pure fury, we have to look at the reporting of Billy Bush, a man who has spent decades navigating the murky waters where Hollywood fame meets global power. Bush, now operating independently on his platform Hot Mix, has utilized his extensive network in the celebrity royal crossover world to expose exactly what went down under the Australian sun. The Hot Mix report confirms what many suspected. The late Queen's most fundamental decree has been shattered. Queen Elizabeth was a woman of immense patience, often described as a Teddy Graham for her sweet and unshakable exterior. But she was crystalline on one point. There is no half in and half out. You are either a servant of the monarchy or you are a private citizen. There is no middle ground where you can harvest the prestige of the throne to line your own pockets. Yet, in Australia, the Sussexes attempted to build a bridge across that impossible canyon, and in doing so, they left a trail of financial and reputational wreckage. Let us look at the sheer hypocrisy of the logistics. Their team insisted the trip was purely charitable, a mental health crusade aimed at supporting the vulnerable. They toured hospitals and met with grieving communities, all while draped in the protection of a massive security detail. And who paid for that security? The taxpayers of Australia. In a time of global economic strain, the Australian public was forced to foot a bill reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars to provide police escorts and high-level protection for what was framed as a royal-style visit. However, the back half of the trip told a very different story. A story of murching and cold, hard cash. While the morning was spent in hospitals under taxpayer-funded guard, the afternoon saw the Duchess appearing as the guest of honor at a luxury wellness retreat. This was not a charitable event. This was an ultra-exclusive commercial venture where VIP tickets were sold for between $2,700 and $3,200. For that price, wealthy attendees were promised a beautiful room with a view, and most importantly, a photo opportunity with Meghan herself. Their flights and five-star hotel accommodations for this portion of the trip were not paid for by the crown or by their own personal wealth. They were covered by the wellness retreat as part of a commercial deal. This is the murky combination that has sent King Charles into a tailspin of annoyance. It is a gross exploitation of a 1,000-year-old brand for the sake of a luxury lifestyle. While the King and Prince William work within the strict guardrails of the institution, where every penny is scrutinized and every engagement is a matter of public service, the Sussexes are carrying out public engagements freely on their own terms, picking and choosing when to be royal and when to be retail. But the calculation goes even deeper. Before the tour even touched down on Australian soil, Meghan had already trademarked her as-ever brand for future commerce. She didn't just visit Australia, she registered a business presence there. She was scouting the market, using the media frenzy of a royal tour to prime the pump for her own commercial expansion. It is a level of strategic planning that makes the privacy pleas of the past 4 years look like a coordinated smokescreen. Billy Bush's reporting highlights a fundamental truth that the mainstream media often ignores. King Charles is not just upset, he is pissed off. He is watching the institution he spent 70 years preparing to lead being used as a backdrop for a shopping platform. This isn't just a father being annoyed with a son, it is a head of state recognizing a parasitic relationship. Charles has been criticized for his laissez-faire approach, his hesitation to strip titles or remove them from the line of succession for fear of making them look like victims. But as Billy Bush points out, that patience has expired. The no-holding-back language coming out of American media circles suggests that the king's annoyance is finally being harnessed into a drive for action. The optics are, quite frankly, ghetto in the eyes of the establishment. It is a low-class approach to a high-class institution. Think about the late Princess Diana. While she had her well-documented struggles with the monarchy, she never reduced her role to a click-to-buy link. She sought privacy because she was being hunted. Meghan, as the commentators point out, is thrusting herself upon us while simultaneously demanding we fund her security. As we move forward in this analysis, we must ask, how long can the British government and the monarchy allow this to continue? The Australian public, once some of the most loyal supporters of the crown, are now being given a front row seat to a grift. They are seeing a couple who plead for privacy while smiling at the center of a meticulously staged media scrum. The authenticity gap has become a canyon. You cannot visit a hospital 1 hour and then charge $3,200 for a photo op the next. It is a betrayal of the firm, a betrayal of the Australian taxpayer, and most importantly, it is a betrayal of the King's trust. Charles is now entering a week that will define the next phase of his reign. With a state visit to the United States on the horizon, he cannot afford to have his authority diluted by non-royal tours that prioritize profit over protocol. The reporting from Hot Mix has pulled back the curtain, and what we see is a king who is finally ready to say, enough. The half-in, half-out experiment has failed, and the Australia trip was the final proof required to close the book on the Sussexes' royal association forever. Keep your eyes on the next chapter, because the details of how Meghan is merching her outfits through a specific shopping platform will expose just how deep this rabbit hole goes. The ultimate taboo of the British monarchy is not scandal, nor is it political disagreement. It is the blatant, cold-blooded commercialization of the crown. For over 1,000 years, the sanctity of the royal family has rested on a single, unspoken agreement. The prestige of the institution belongs to the people, not to the individual. But as we peel back the layers of the Australia disaster tour, we find a business model that has fundamentally violated this sacred trust. This isn't just about a couple making a living. It is about what insiders are calling the Great Royal Merch-Off, a strategic operation that has turned charitable visits into high-fashion showrooms. The most damning evidence of this premeditation lies in the legal filings discovered just days before the tour began. Meghan didn't just happen to be in Australia. She had already moved to trademark her As Ever brand, specifically within the Australian jurisdiction. This was a land grab for commerce, timed to coincide with a period when global media attention would be at its absolute peak. While the king was under the impression that his daughter-in-law was representing the dignity of the United Kingdom, her lawyers were busy securing intellectual property rights for a future retail empire. But the commercial exploitation goes far beyond simple trademarks. We are now seeing the rise of a click-to-buy monarchy. Billy Bush and other veteran reporters have highlighted a deeply disturbing mechanism behind Meghan's wardrobe choices. During the tour, it was revealed that Meghan was allegedly earning kickbacks through a sophisticated shopping platform built around her outfits. Imagine the optics. A duchess visits a hospital to comfort sick children, wearing a little black dress that costs thousands of dollars. Within minutes of the photos being uploaded, a digital link appears on a curated platform. If a follower clicks that link and buys the dress, Meghan receives a financial percentage of the sale. This is what Billy Bush calls merching, and it is anathema to everything the royal family stands for. Consider the contrast with the Princess of Wales. When Catherine wears a dress, it often sells out in minutes. This is known as the Kate effect. However, Catherine does not receive a single penny from those sales. She does not have a side jack or an affiliate deal with the designers. Her influence is used to support British industry and global fashion as a byproduct of her service. Meghan, however, has allegedly turned her body into a walking billboard for a digital storefront. It is a murky combination of public service and private profit that has left King Charles and Prince William in a state of absolute disbelief. The hypocrisy is staggering. While the Sussex team insists that these trips are not self-promotional because they involve mental health talks and charitable engagements, the data suggests otherwise. You cannot claim to be a selfless humanitarian while simultaneously operating a high-speed commercial engine that profits from the very visibility your charity provides. It is the definition of having your cake and eating it too. You take the taxpayer-funded security, you take the royal-level media access, and then you funnel that attention into a private bank account through affiliate links and As Ever brand expansion. However, the merching scandal reached a sickening new low during the visit to Bondi Beach. This event was intended to be a solemn moment of reflection, as the couple met with victims of a horrific Islamist attack on Jewish individuals. It was a moment that required the utmost sensitivity, gravitas, and respect. Instead, it became the site of a global PR nightmare. Meghan appeared in a striped shirt that many observers immediately noted bore an uncanny and haunting resemblance to the uniforms worn by Jewish prisoners in concentration camps during World War II. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Online communities and cultural historians pointed out that in such a sensitive setting, especially when meeting with the Jewish community, the choice of a prison stripe aesthetic was either a display of catastrophic ignorance or a reckless disregard for historical trauma. When you are a working member of the royal family, You have a team of 10 or 15 experts who vet every single detail of an engagement to ensure such offenses never happen. But the Sussexes have traded guardrails for freedom, and this is the result. A duchess wearing an outfit that evokes the Holocaust while meeting victims of a modern-day attack. But the most despicable part of this story, as noted by royal analysts like P. Dina, is what happened after the backlash. Rather than issuing an apology or removing the outfit from her commercial sphere, the shirt allegedly remained on her website. The only change? The photo was swapped. Instead of the photo of her with Harry at the memorial site, the merching link was updated with a photo of her stepping out of a luxury Range Rover. The goal remained the same: sell the shirt, profit from the look. The cultural offense was secondary to the commercial conversion rate. This is why the king is pissed off. He is not just dealing with a family rift, he is dealing with a brand liability that is ghettoizing the monarchy. The non-royal tour has proven that without the discipline of the institution, the Sussex brand descends into a grifter mentality where everything is for sale, even a memorial service. As Billy Bush rightly pointed out, Diana sought privacy while being pursued. Meghan is thrusting herself upon us and then sending us the invoice for the wardrobe she wore while doing it. As we move into the next phase of this breakdown, we have to look at the psychological root of this behavior. Why would a woman who has reached the pinnacle of global society resort to these low-level commercial tactics? To answer that, we have to look at the chilling observations of the one person who saw through it all from the very beginning: the late Queen Elizabeth II. Insiders are finally speaking out about what the Queen truly thought of Meghan's narcissistic tendencies and how she predicted this exact commercial betrayal years before it came to fruition. The Teddy Graham Queen had a spine of steel, and her final verdict on Meghan is about to be revealed in a way that will shake the foundation of the Sussexes' remaining credibility. Stay with us, because the truth about the Queen's narcissist label is even more calculated than you think. The most devastating blow to the Sussex narrative does not come from the tabloids, nor does it come from political critics. It comes from the quiet, dignified, and terrifyingly perceptive silence of the late Queen Elizabeth II. For decades, the Queen was the world's ultimate practitioner of the poker face. She could sit across from dictators, prime ministers, and scandal-ridden relatives without ever letting a single flicker of her true opinion cross her brow. But as we reach this turning point in 2026, the veil of royal secrecy is being lifted by those who stood closest to her in her final years. What they are revealing is a portrait of a monarch who, beneath her Teddy Graham sweetness, possessed a spine of steel and a clarity of vision that saw through the Meghan Markle phenomenon long before the rest of the world caught on. Robert Hardman, arguably the most respected in-house biographer of the royal family, and a man who weighs his words with the precision of a diamond cutter, has dropped a historical bombshell. According to Hardman, the Queen's initial efforts to welcome Meghan were not just polite, they were exhaustive. The narrative often pushed by California that Meghan was thrown to the wolves or left without guidance is being systematically dismantled. Hardman reveals that the Queen spent a massive amount of time personally selecting patronages for Meghan, choosing organizations and causes that the Queen herself held dear. This was the ultimate royal welcome mat. It was an invitation into the very heart of the Queen's life's work. But as these plans were presented, they were not just declined. They were, in the words of palace insiders, torn up. This was the beginning of the end for the Queen's patience. The transition from baffling to frustrating and finally to narcissistic happened behind closed doors at Windsor and Buckingham Palace. Those who were in the room during the Queen's final years are now speaking out, confirming that by the end, the sovereign had detected clear narcissistic behavior on the part of the Duchess. When a woman who has reigned for 7 decades, meeting every major world leader and navigating every global crisis of the 20th and early 21st centuries, labels someone a narcissist, it is not a casual insult. It is a clinical, veteran observation of someone who refuses to serve anything other than their own image. The Queen saw a woman who did not want to be part of a 1,000-year-old tapestry, but rather wanted to use that tapestry as a backdrop for a solo performance. The best-laid plans to integrate the Sussexes into the firm were viewed by Meghan not as an opportunity for service, but as a set of handcuffs that prevented her from merging her status. The psychological toll on the late Queen cannot be overstated. In her 95th and 96th years, while she was grieving the loss of Prince Philip and battling the physical decline of her own body, she was forced to watch her grandson and his wife attempt to monetize her life's devotion. The Queen understood, perhaps better than anyone in history, that the monarchy is a selfless institution. You give up your identity to become a symbol of the nation, Narcissism is the polar opposite of that vocation. A narcissist cannot be a symbol of anyone but themselves. As Billy Bush and P. Dina have noted, the contrast between the Queen's perception and Meghan's self-portrayal is a chasm that can never be bridged. Meghan portrays herself as a modern-day Diana, a woman pursued and misunderstood. But the Queen saw the truth. Diana, for all her faults, remained dedicated to the work until the very end. Meghan, on the other hand, was seen as a grifter in royal clothing. This is the betrayal that King Charles is now forced to manage. He is not just dealing with a son. He is protecting the legacy of a mother who felt deeply let down by a couple she had tried so hard to help. The narcissism label explains everything we saw in the Australia disaster tour. It explains the merching of the prison-striped shirt at a memorial service. It explains the $3,200 photo ops. A narcissist does not see the Jewish community or the victims of an attack as the focus of an event. They see them as supporting actors in a photo opportunity designed to sell a luxury brand. The Queen's detection of this behavior is the ultimate validation for those who have criticized the couple's authenticity. The late sovereign knew that Meghan was thrusting herself upon us while demanding the support of a public she was simultaneously exploiting. This revelation from Robert Hardman has fundamentally shifted the power dynamic. It is no longer Charles versus Harry. It is now the legacy of the Queen versus the ambition of Meghan. King Charles, who has been hesitant to act for fear of looking like a bully, now has the moral cover of his mother's final judgment. If the most beloved monarch in British history believed that Meghan was showing narcissistic tendencies, then the king has not just a right, but a duty to protect the institution from that influence. The era of laissez-faire is officially over because the king can no longer ignore the warning signs that his mother saw so clearly. The annoyance he feels is the echo of the Queen's own frustration. As we move into the fifth part of our analysis, we see how this narcissistic pattern is now colliding with the harsh reality of Hollywood power. The love bombing of Netflix executives and the desperate jam diplomacy are the final gasps of a brand that has lost the one thing the Queen valued most: dignity. Meghan is finding out that while you can merch a title, you cannot merch respect. And in the high-stakes world of Ted Sarandos and the Obamas, the narcissist label is a professional death sentence. Keep watching as we dive into the handwritten note desperation that has turned the Sussex brand into a Hollywood joke. The glittering lights of Hollywood were once thought to be the ultimate sanctuary for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, a place where their royal status would be converted into an endless stream of gold and influence. But as we stand in the middle of 2026, the hills of Montecito are echoing with a sound far more chilling than the pursuit of the paparazzi, the sound of total professional silence. The royal shine has not just faded, it has been stripped away, leaving behind a brand that is increasingly viewed as a liability by the very power players Meghan Markle once considered her peers. We are now witnessing what veteran reporters call the desperation phase. According to explosive new reporting from Rob Shooter, the Duchess has pivoted from her high and mighty royal stance to a frantic campaign of love bombing aimed at the few remaining connections she has in the industry. At the center of this storm are Ted Sarandos, the chief executive officer of Netflix, and his wife Nicole Levant. The strategy is as transparent as it is frantic. Sources tell the Naughty But Nice report that Meghan is currently bombarding the Sarandos household with a steady stream of handwritten notes, expensive flowers, and her now infamous signature jam. It is an attempt to rewrite the history of the last few years. A history defined by missed deadlines, canceled projects, and a lack of professional output. This is not just a gesture of friendship. It is a calculated, strategic push to rebuild trust that has been shattered by a series of high-profile failures. But here is where the retention of the Sussex brand truly falls apart. One insider describes the situation as calculated and emotional, an attempt by Meghan to make these powerful executives feel valued and remembered. However, in the cold, hard world of Hollywood business, flowers do not replace a lack of content. The push comes amid whispers of extreme tension following the end of her primary deal with Netflix. While she tries to frame this love bombing as personal and sincere, those within the industry see it for what it truly is, a desperate attempt to secure a professional future that is slipping through her fingers. The reporting from Variety has been even more devastating. In a world where talent is managed with extreme care, the word is out that Ted Sarandos, a man known for his strategic brilliance, is no longer willing to engage in the Sussex drama without legal guardrails. It has been reported that the Netflix chief now prefers to avoid direct phone conversations or Zoom meetings with Meghan unless lawyers are present. Let that sink in. This is not the behavior of a business partner who views you as an equal. This is the behavior of a corporation protecting itself from a talent that has become too unpredictable and too litigious to handle with a simple handshake. The contrast with other high-profile Netflix partners is staggering. The Obamas, for example, have navigated their post-presidential lives with a level of dignity and professional consistency that the Sussexes have failed to replicate. Netflix knows how to manage talent in and talent out, and while they will always maintain a polite public face, the variety of reports suggests the internal patience has evaporated. Meghan's handwritten notes, written in the calligraphy that many insiders now find annoying and meticulously planned, are failing to do the trick. It turns out that jam diplomacy is no match for the grifter label that has become the defining characteristic of their American venture. We must remember the words of Bill Simmons, the high-level Spotify executive who famously broke the industry's silence by labeling Harry and Meghan as effing grifters. That comment was a seismic event in Hollywood. It gave permission for others to speak the truth, that the couple had promised the world and delivered almost nothing. The love bombing of Nicole Avant is particularly telling. Insiders suggest that Meghan is crying to her all the time, acting in a way that is described as needy and naggy. For a woman like Nicole Avant, who is part of one of the most powerful and respected families in American media and politics, this level of constant bombardment is not charming. It is exhausting. Meghan believes this is how you repair a relationship. Hollywood believes this is how you burn a bridge. Ted Sarandos is a businessman who views the world through the lens of financial payoffs. If Harry and Meghan were to bring him a documentary that finally revealed the truth about the Princess Diana car crash, a project that has been whispered about for months, he would likely sign it because scandal sells. But the wellness content and the lifestyle branding, they are viewed as low-class products that bleed the prestige out of the Netflix platform. The tragedy of the Sussex brand is that they treated Hollywood the same way they treated the monarchy. They thought the status alone would be enough to keep the money flowing. They didn't realize that in Hollywood you are only as good as your last hit, and Spare was a one-time explosion that left nothing but scorched earth in its wake. King Charles is reportedly aware of this Hollywood reckoning. He sees that the very world his son and daughter-in-law chose over a life of royal duty is now rejecting them. The annoyance the king feels is amplified by the fact that their desperation often leads back to the crown. Every time a deal fails in California, a new betrayal is planned against the monarchy to generate content. As we move into the final part of our deep dive, we will look at the ultimate question: what happens when the love bombing fails, when the jam runs out and the handwritten notes are left unopened? We will look at the latest polling from the United Kingdom, the rise of the next generation of royals, and why the pissed-off King Charles is finally ready to make the move that Prince William has been advocating for since the very beginning. The reckoning is not just coming, it is already here, and it is being driven by a king who has realized that you cannot save a son who is determined to sell his soul for a click-to-buy link. Keep watching for the conclusion of the Sussex downfall. The crown is not a fashion accessory. It is a weight of duty that either ennobles the wearer or crushes the pretender. As we reach the conclusion of this investigation in late April 2026, the fundamental question is no longer whether Harry and Meghan will return to the royal fold. That ship has not only sailed, it has vanished over the horizon. The real question now is how swiftly King Charles will move to excise the Sussex cancer from the body of the British monarchy to ensure its survival for the next 1,000 years. For too long, the king has been a man of laissez-faire patience, a father hoping for a prodigal son's return. But as the betrayal of the Australia tour and the merging of the monarchy have been exposed, that patience has transformed into a cold, sovereign fury. The annoyance that Billy Bush reported is the final warning shot. In the world of constitutional monarchy, a king's annoyance is the precursor to a royal decree. We are now seeing the influence of Prince William, the future King William V, rising to the forefront. William has reportedly spent years advocating for a total severing of ties, and it appears his father is finally listening. The strategy of doing nothing to avoid making Harry and Meghan look like victims has failed because a narcissist does not need a reason to play the victim. They will manufacture one regardless. But what does the public think? Many in the hard-left media and Republican movements have spent the last 4 years claiming that the monarchy is on its deathbed, fueled by the Sussex drama. However, the latest external data from YouGov tells a very different story. Despite the relentless attacks, 64% of the British public still support the continuation of the monarchy. This number has remained remarkably stable since January. Meanwhile, the movement for an elected head of state has only seen a marginal increase of 1%, sitting at a lowly 24%. This data is a truth bomb for the Sussexes. It proves that the British public can distinguish between the institution and the individuals who attempt to exploit it. People are not turning away from the crown, they are turning away from the drama. The public recognizes that the monarchy is in a stronger place than its critics claim, largely because of the steady hand of the king and the future-forward vision of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The regeneration of the royal family is already happening before our eyes. While the Sussexes are busy love-bombing Netflix executives and selling $3,200 photo ops, a new generation of working royals is being prepared. We see it in Prince George, who is being mentored for his future role with a level of care and discipline that was clearly missing in his uncle Harry. We see it in Princess Charlotte, who is already being hailed as the secret weapon of the family, a young woman who possesses the poise of her great-grandmother and the charisma of her mother. And of course, there is Prince Louis, whose adorable and unscripted moments remind the world that behind the titles, this is a family rooted in human connection, not commercial calculation. The contrast is stark. On one side, you have a non-royal royal tour designed to merch shirts and sell luxury retreat tickets. On the other, you have a family preparing to serve a nation for the rest of their lives. The authenticity gap that Billy Bush mentioned has become an unbridgeable canyon. Meghan and Harry are discovering that you cannot merch dignity. You cannot buy Diana-level relatability through a shopping platform kickback. Authenticity is earned through years of silent service, not through handwritten notes and signature jams sent to Hollywood moguls. As King Charles prepares for his historic state visit to the United States to meet with President Donald Trump and address Congress, he does so as a leader who has finally found his backbone. He knows that he must protect the reputation of the British government and the crown from those who would damage it without a second thought. The disaster tour to Australia was the final proof that the Sussexes are no longer a private family matter. They are a national security risk to the prestige of the United Kingdom. Action is now inevitable. Whether it is the removal of titles, the formal expulsion from the line of succession, or the complete cessation of all communication, the king is being pushed toward a William-style resolution. The murky combination of royal status and retail commerce must be ended. As the reporting from Robert Hardman and Billy Bush suggests, the establishment is finally speaking with one voice. You are all the way in, or you are all the way out. Harry and Meghan chose to be out. They chose the charmed life in Montecito over the dutiful life in London, but they forgot that the charm only exists because of the duty. Without the connection to the crown, they are just another pair of effing grifters in a town full of them. We are on a mission to reach 700,000 subscribers on this journey for truth and accountability. If you believe that the monarchy should stand for service and not for sale, then I need you to do something for me right now. It is free, it is easy, and it is the best way to support independent, uncensored news. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join our community of over 500,000 people who refuse to accept the total guff fed to us by the mainstream media. The era of the Sussex betrayal is reaching its final chapter. The pissed-off king has arrived, and the reckoning will be televised not as a Netflix documentary, but as a masterclass in how a sovereign protects his throne. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned, because the fallout from the king's visit to the White House will change the royal landscape forever. The crown is heavy, but for King Charles, it is finally time to show the world that he has the strength to wear it alone.